Welcome to another episode of Getting There and Giving Back, the show that talks to high achievers about where they are, how they got there, and the things they do to give back. Today's guest is the Senior Vice President of the Robert Half Government Wing at Robert Half, where they specialize in the deployment of contractors in support of federal, state, and local government agency clients and government contracting partners to support their missions and move key projects forward. And he does so much more than that. Jorge Marquez, thank you for coming on with us.
Thanks, AJ. It's great to be here.
Oh boy, I was taking a deep dive into what you do, and it's when I read that intro, it sounds like, oh, he works strictly with government clients, but that's false. You work with people in entertainment and life science and manufacturing. So I got what are the commonalities that allow you to consult and grow all these different sounding businesses?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, as you mentioned, I cover a variety of different industries, but there's certain commonalities that take place between industries. All industries have people, and people really is what make companies work. Without people, you don't have a company, and you need at least one person to have a company. So, a big part is how do people work together within certain functional areas. So, you think about your business operations. You got people who do accounting and finance. You got people who do marketing and get your stuff out there. You got your IT people. So all those people all have certain roles that they play in supporting an organization and being successful. So I help companies evaluate those teams and find the right people for those teams, and then enable those teams to be successful by giving them the right tools like technology and the right systems that are part of that underlying operational structure, and then also the processes. So how do you do what you do? What's the best way to do it? Where are ways to improve how we do what we do? So I help around those kind of three core areas. You could break it down to people, processes, and systems really fall under our Robert Half and then Protiviti Consulting business group within Robert Half International.
So when does a company come to you, and how do they find you in the first place?
Yeah, great question. Well, we work with the majority of the Fortune 1000 companies. We've been around since the 40s, and we're a S&P index Fortune 500 public company. So a lot of people hear about us just because our reputation is global, and we've been out there a long time. Now, when do they, for example, like work with us? Well, they might be, for example, a company that we've been working with, helping them just provide professional resources. So they're like, hey, I need to hire someone for my team. I'm looking to bring on a cybersecurity manager, and they're really hard to find. So let's bring on Robert Half. They're going to help us find that cybersecurity manager. So they bring us on, they engage us to recruit that person. We find them from another company and we place them there. But then they're like, gosh, we need a lot of help in cybersecurity. We really need to do an evaluation of our entire system because we have some vulnerabilities. And if we don't address these vulnerabilities, someone might hack into our system. So they say, hey, can you help us with evaluating our system, doing an assessment? And so we say, yeah, we can help you with an assessment. So we'll do a full cybersecurity assessment, evaluate how they do their business, and see where their kind of vulnerabilities or gaps are. And then from there, we'll say, okay, well, now that we've identified your gaps, they're like, well, someone needs to fix these things. We might have not know how to do that. So then we'll help them fix those gaps. And so we might, in fixing those gaps, help them put additional systems in place, update some of their processes, maybe even make recommendations at adding additional members to their team on top of that one person we hired, helped them hire a while ago. So we kind of help with all aspects, and it usually starts with something small, and then it grows into bigger projects.
How often are people wrong about what they think their gaps are?
It's you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So a lot of times I got to tell you, it's the until you bring that someone with the outside perspective, because when you're in that company, you're like in the forest, right? You're living in the forest, so you can't see outside of the forest. You can't see on top of it, you can't see around. So you bring someone who's been outside that forest, who's seen other places. They come and like, oh, they almost sometimes immediately pick up on it because you've been looking at the same thing over and over. You think it's fine, but they're like, well, actually, there's something going on there. So it happens all the time. You'd be surprised.
Wow. You mentioned fixing or dealing in the categories of people and process. Which one's more challenging?
People. It's always people. Just so complex. Every person is different. The culture of every organization is different. How people work together is different, and there's just so many different styles. I feel like, the people recipe is just different everywhere you go.
Right. And
Where
processes don't have feelings.
yeah, processes, you can kind of carry certain processes and have like kind of templates and best practices on how things are done. But how people work together, it's just everyone's different.
Do you remember this was years ago, but it gets brought up in business stuff all the time where there was some airline that took one olive out of all the salads and it changed the amount they were making, or so it was something they made a little adjustment and it like saved their company.
Nice.
Do you have any big turnaround stories where you actually found a leak in the boat that seemed pretty small, but it made a huge difference?
That's a great question. Yeah, I would say, there's a few, but one I'll bring up was a Fortune 500 public company, big name brand company, doing a global consolidation of their operations for finance and accounting and IT. So they were setting up a whole new campus around that, and they were moving people from different locations into this one location. And they had a really good plan. They planned it years in advance. They had an entire project team that was dedicated to making this move and consolidation, and everything seemed to be like perfectly set up. But as we were going through, we found that there were projects that they had to do concurrently while they were making this move, which kind of added a little bit extra. So their focus is the move, but then they have certain kind of systems implementations and certain accounting processes that they have to update. And so as they're going through this, they realized that with their current existing staff, their teams, they couldn't accomplish everything they needed to do. So they really it turned out initially to be like, oh, we might need a person or two here, help with certain things. But as we got in, they're like, oh gosh, all this extra work on top of this consolidation, we're going to need much more than we anticipated. And so we really helped them come up with a plan. Okay, let's look at your entire finance and accounting org, your IT. What are those extra projects on top of just the normal day-to-day with this big move too, that you're going to need to have some other people come in so that your team isn't overwhelmed, that they're not jumping off board because they're like, hell no, I'm not gonna do that job and my day job, heck no. So it was one of those things where by coming in and supporting them and saying, where are those, where's the kind of overflow, helping them manage that little hole could have become a huge flood if they hadn't addressed that. Because then everyone gets overwhelmed, people then start leaving, and then this whole consolidation turns out to be a disaster. So that's the example that really comes to mind. And it's one of the largest companies in the world, actually, that we help with that.
Wow. That sounds like such a stressful situation to be in, to be fixing this big problem for this giant company. But you light up when you tell it. It seems like a stressful job, but you obviously love what you do. What do you love about it?
I love it because I really feel like, I'm helping individuals and organizations really make a difference. I help people operate effectively together. I help them, it's like my job goes down to my DNA. I'm a catalyst. I'm a connector. I help people, really what comes down to is I'm all about love. Love is how people interact and connect with one another. And so what I do is I help organizations, which are made up really of people, connect better with one another and operate better with one another, accomplishing a common goal and vision. And so I'm all about love. And what I do is really comes down to that. People call it collaboration. That's kind of the code word we use. So I help people collaborate.
And how did you get there? What was the path to being where you are doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I've been doing this business now, in advising, consulting, and working with organizations and professional services since about 2000. So I started at KPMG, which is a global CPA firm, one of the big four, doing taxation, corporate taxation. So working on gigantic tax returns where tax return would fill up an entire room. That's how many forms. So I got into the technical side. I started to understand how organizations ran from that side. And then I got into more advisory, consulting, audit. Actually, that's where I met Aimee Sando. I met her at Deloitte and Touche, and I was in a consulting, leading big projects there for them, audit projects, audit engagements. And then as I really, after that, I got realized that my where I was really best served was in helping people work together to basically reach common goals and objectives. And so I got into this kind of, first kind of staffing business, helping companies with project-based resources about 13 years ago. And so I just really started to grow. It started out with a small practice. Robert Half eventually, found me in the marketplace, and they recruited me, my firm. They're like, you're doing something right. We need you to come to our company. So they went after me over about 6 months to recruit me to come to the company to lead their San Diego practice. Then I went to a firm called Vistage, who also recruited me to build boards, these advisory boards. You might have heard Vistage. They're headquartered in San Diego. Yeah. It's the world's largest CEO coaching and advisory organization in the world. So I was helping them develop these advisory boards, which are masterminds. So I was helping to recruit the former CEOs, former presidents of companies to do this. So I got exposed to leadership development, org development, became a leader in that, working with some of the top people across the world to build these groups. And Robert Half, wanted me back. And so they made a big run at me. They're like, look, we want you to move to LA, come back to our firm and lead our LA practice for our senior level finance and accounting and consulting group. So I came back. In fact, it was the Western president of Robert Half's company, oversees a 300 million plus business. He's like, you got to come back. And so lunch and said, we want you to come to LA. What do we need to pay you? So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going to LA. And at this time, actually, I just had a dream. I had been to Burning Man, and I had this vision of like really serving and helping in a greater way in a bigger city. And I haven't told you about all my nonprofit and service work, but I mean, it's been ingrained in me. I want to make the world a better place, and I want to do that by the individual, and do that through love, which is my expression. And so I go into Robert Half, go into LA, and quickly over time, I'm leading our LA practice. Then they make me a VP over our enterprise solutions, which is bridging our consulting and all of our different service lines into providing full solutions to our clients. And that's when I start to really get into what I'm doing now. So I'm helping clients on all aspects of their organization across professional areas on people, process, systems, from consulting to talent to human capital, all of it. And it's really grown. It's grown to where it's at, today, and what I'm doing now.
I love it. And this is a perfect time to pivot to the further ways you're giving back, because you get to give back every day to these companies that need your help, and you turn them around. And I'm sure they would consider that giving back. But you went to management at your firm, and you said, I've got an idea and I love this idea, and you're doing it. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm really passionate about is apprenticeships. It's helping people to who don't have the tools, the resources available to them to then learn on the job, get opportunities to do something they want to do and grow. And what really inspires me in that, I mean, I came from immigrants, I first person to go to college in my family. Grew up 10 minutes from the border, Chula Vista, and I didn't have a lot. And so I've always along the way, I've always wanted to help other people to grow and to be able to have opportunities, give them the opportunities that fortunately I have been gifted along my life, and have worked hard to attain, but also share with them a path to success, their own personal success. And so I pitched an opportunity to partner with the state of California and the U.S. Department of Labor to launch a professional apprenticeship program. So you think of apprenticeships, it's, carpenter, you might think of like electrician, or you might think of Luke Skywalker, but what I thought about was, if we could do that in accounting and finance, technology, legal, creative, digital roles, and how we could then work with communities. For example, we're doing the Inland Empire for cybersecurity. So Riverside, San Bernardino. These are, you think of not, wealthy communities, but have a lot of underserved populations in LA, in the inner cities. from downtown LA, through, the West Side, all different parts of the greater LA area, which we're doing accounting. And so I pitched it as this is an opportunity for us to address a skills gap. I mean, certain areas like cybersecurity, there's like negative unemployment. There are way more. I mean, you think about the companies getting hacked and you hear about all there's a lot of needs. Companies can't hire them fast enough. Wow. And so what happens is that companies just don't have the people they need to be able to make sure they have a secure environment. And so I thought, well, we can address a few things here. We can increase diversity and inclusion because we can draw from communities that have needs. We can address the skills gap because then companies can get the people they need to grow. And then we can at the same time, create more retention for these companies because there's so much demand. Companies are stealing people from other companies. Like, oh, well, we can't find them here. And we can't get them from college. Well, we'll just go to that other company and pay that person 20% more and take them over here. Well, what happens to that company who just had that person stolen? They're going to take someone from someone else. So that happens. So there's this talent war. So there's like this, issue with retention happening right now in companies because there's not enough talent out there to go around. So our executive team was like, let's do it.
So you're doing it. And how does it work? When you say we're doing cybersecurity in Riverside, what does that mean? You go out to the schools? I mean, how is this actually executed?
Yeah. So we've created teaming agreements with 4 schools in the greater Inland Empire area. It is an example, Cal State San Bernardino, Riverside City College are 2 of the schools. We've developed a set of, we call it apprenticeship standards. So this is like a document that guides kind of the on-the-job training that you're getting, the instruction that you're getting from the school. It guides the pre-qualifications to get into the program, as well as, once you're in the program, kind of a wage increase to go from like a apprentice to a fully trained cybersecurity technician. Wow. So these are guiding documents that we put in place with the state of California as well as the Department of Labor. And so those actually, will guide our program. And how the program works, the students come from the school. We qualify them. We have a career advisor is what we're calling it. The career advisor would then meet with the student, say, hey, let's talk about the program. You interested? Let's see if you're good, you're qualified. We'd put them through kind of a short-term, we call it pre-apprenticeship program, where they do say a 1 to 2 week program where they're learning certain courses, preparing them for doing the job for the first time, because many of them never done a professional job. Yeah. And then we give them an assessment based upon that. They doing that well, they will go to one of our clients. Our client says, hey, we want to move forward. Then we would hire the apprentice to join our company. They would work at our client site, while one of the client mentors is guiding them. We would be mentoring them as our career advisor, and then the school would be advising the apprentice at the same time. So they're getting 3 different mentors helping them to perform successfully on the job. And they do this over a period of time. It's around up to 2,000 hours as far as our program. It could be less. It's more of a competency based. So it's based upon when they learn all the aspects of the job, then they get converted to a full-time employee. And they also get a certificate of completion, which is like from the Department of Labor. So they'll have a certificate from the U.S. Department of Labor, the California Department of Industrial Relations, and it says, successful completion of a 1 year, 2,000 hour apprenticeship program in this specific field. So then they can go, if they wouldn't have to take that job at that company. They'd be like, you know what, it's okay. I want to explore the companies. They're an experienced professional and they've already gotten education. And by the way, our community college students, their related education that they get in the apprenticeship program is free. They get free community college education for the job they're doing. We're looking to revolutionize education and working out there and completely change the whole landscape as far as diversity and inclusion, because we're going to create a whole new workforce. 10,000 unemployed people here in the U.S., 7,000 open jobs. We want to fill those 7 million open jobs with those people and create more opportunities for the future.
There's such synergy there in the way you're helping the companies, you're helping the kids, and it's such an I mean, I don't know what your experience was in high school, but I got marched down to my guidance counselor and took some weird little quiz and then was told what I might be good at and then sent out into the world. This kind of training, it's amazing. And is it new enough that you haven't graduated your first and placed your first kids or people yet, or where are we in the process?
I mean, we literally just got approval from our executive team to move forward with this program.
Oh,
So
nice.
we're setting up our entire business. So I'm an entrepreneur. I am leading the startup of a new company within Robert Half, and we're filing our standards. So we hope to have our first group of students in here as apprentices at the end of June, but for the summer.
That's amazing. And are you looking at it as a pilot program? Like if you can prove this out here, that's just the beginning.
That's right. We're calling it a pilot. Yeah. So we plan on having the 20 students go into the program end of June, and then our next cohort, we call it, is going to be end of September, which would be another 50. If those go well, then we would be looking at expanding into other locations across the state. We already have conversations going on about that with the state of California. We are talking to the California Secretary of Labor, and I have personal conversations with their leadership. And then we're developing a joint program with the state to help them expand cyber apprenticeships across the state. But we also want to expand it to other professional areas as well.
That's something else. Well, as if you aren't helping enough people and doing enough good, you also work with, this is near and dear to my heart. I grew up going to the Boys and Girls Club. I coached my little brother's team after I was done playing. And right before COVID hit, I coached my daughter's team at the Boys and Girls Club playing basketball.
Nice.
And you're doing something very cool with the Boys and Girls Club in your area.
Yeah, I love the Boys and Girls Clubs, and actually, I used to attend the Lakeside Boys and Girls Clubs. I grew up in San Diego, so I was part of the Lakeside Boys and Girls Clubs for some time when I was in middle school, early high school. So actually, I am the advisory board co-chair for the Boys and Girls Clubs of Los Angeles, the LA Alliance for Boys and Girls Clubs. So I help a few things. I help them raise money, and then we give millions of dollars to the Boys and Girls Clubs across LA. We help with several programs, from our Youth of the Year event to our collab program, which I want to go into. It's our workforce development program. And that program, we basically have classes. And so these go on for about 6 weeks. We have one starting May 4th. And our student population is about 50 that come from all the different clubs. And in that program, students who are in high school, ages 14 to 18, have a chance to be able to get exposed to a bunch of different companies and get mentored along the way. So they go through this professional development program. Wow. They have no idea what they want to do usually at this time. Like, oh, I want to be an athlete, a pro athlete, or I want to be a rapper, whatever it is. They have these ideas, but we actually get them in front of companies like SpaceX, like Target, like Live Nation and Disney. My firm, Robert Half, is a big participant as well. Wow. AEG. And so they get exposure. They get to see, like, what does someone do at that company? So like when we pre-COVID, they'd actually do a tour at ABC7 Studios at Disney's headquarters here in LA. And they would see the studio. They would see what the marketing people are doing. They get to see every aspect. And so they say, oh, wait, so you don't have to just be a broadcast journalist to be at ABC7. No, you could actually be a studio engineer. You could be a marketing manager. There's all these different roles. And so the students, while they're getting exposed to this, they have a mentor assigned to them, a professional mentor who is an expert in their industry. And they're meeting with them once a week and advising them, supporting them, being a sounding board. And like, what are you learning? What is interesting to you? What do you think about this? And so they're getting that weekly mentorship. They're doing also a leadership development course during the program. And then simultaneously, they're getting curriculum. So there's some, journaling, there's reflection, there's, not like homework, but more like application. Like, how does this apply to me? And then at the end of the program, they get 1 unit of school credit. And then we're a registered pre-apprenticeship program. So we're setting up teaming agreements with companies where then these pre-apprentices, they're graduated from the program that are part of the Boys and Girls Clubs, would then be able to go get a job at Disney, get a job at SoCal Edison. So that's so cool. That's the program.
I love that, because we do this weird thing with kids where when they're really little, we spend a lot of time telling them, and a lot of their media, the shows they watch and stuff, tell them you can be anything you want when you grow up. You can do anything. If you can dream it, you can do it. And then they get to be about teenagers and we start going, well, not totally anything. I mean, because because in reality, like if you don't have the height and maybe the gifts, you're not going to be able to make it in the NBA. But
Right.
you could be a coach. You might not be a player, but you could be a coach. You could be a ref. You could be a commentator. You really, if you love the NBA, there is something for you to do there. And that's what I love that you're showing them. Like, yeah, you want to work at Disney, but you're not an animator. There's a million other jobs to do there. I love that.
That's right. Yeah, because they might love the industry. They might love entertainment. They might love film, but there's different ways that you can participate in that.
We end every interview with the same 3 questions. The first one is, do you have a habit or a ritual that makes your life better?
Yeah, meditation. Morning meditation, evening meditation, and taking moments throughout the day to stop and breathe and meditate.
Okay, I'm a meditation fan. Do you use an app? Do you use a mantra? Are you a mindfulness meditator?
Yeah, well, I used to use an app, and I have practice mantras. I kind of do all of the above. I consider myself a yogi. So I have in my life taken a path of self-realization. So
Wow.
I apply all aspects of meditation into my practice and use different methods depending on where I'm at and what stage I'm in that specific journey.
I love that. Everyone struggles with this one. What's your favorite book of all time?
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Okay, that fits with you considering yourself a yogi. And what's the best advice you were ever given?
The best advice I was ever given: be the change you want to make in the world.
Well, you're clearly doing it. That's what I love, is that you are clearly following that advice. Jorge, what a pleasure to have you on. All the best to you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, AJ. It's a pleasure. Really enjoyed this time.